Hi students and family members, this is Mr. Panza taking a look at today's focus question, how do we compare fractions? There are a couple different ways to compare fractions, but when we're really focused on it, there are two main ways that we can really truly compare fractions. There's one way that you can compare fractions that I had previously shown you in another video, but the way that I'm going to teach all of the students is this way, right down here. You can solve this problem, which is less 4/6 or 3/8. In other words, which one compares to the other, 4/6 or 3/8, which is larger. You can follow these 5 steps each and every time to compare fractions like this with unlike denominators and fractions with like denominators. First, you need to check for common denominators. If there are common denominators, you can skip to step 5, because in that case, all you are going to do is compare the numerators, or the number on top, and then the mouth would open wide towards the larger numerator. However, in this example and the rest of the examples on this video, we do not have a common denominator, which means I have to go down to step 2. I'm going to teach the students how to cross multiply. Cross multiply the denominator to the opposite numerator. Here's what that would look like. First, I'm going to set up the problem. Now that I have 4/6 over here on my left and 3/8 over here on my right, I can go to step 2, cross multiply the denominator to the opposite numerator. Remember, the denominators are the numbers down below, underneath the fraction line, which means I'm going to take this denominator and cross multiply it with this opposite numerator. 6 times 3 gets me 18. When I get my answer of 18, I place it above the opposite numerator. That's step 3. Write the answer big above the number. So again, you're going to write it nice and large and big above where you multiplied. You've got to do that with both. So you're repeating step 2 for 8 times 4, 8, 16, 24, 32. And again, step 3 says write the answer big above that number. Then step 4 is the comparison. Compare those two big numbers. Now, which one is larger, a 32 or an 18? 32 is larger, which means the mouth opens towards the large number that you wrote big. And in this case, you don't even have to do step 5, because you now know that 32 is larger than 18, which means 4/6 is greater than 3/8. Whichever number is larger, the one that you wrote big, whichever number fraction that is on top of, that is the larger number. So in this case, 4/6 is my largest fraction. Let's take a look at a couple more examples using these 5 steps. Again, I have 5 simple steps that I can follow to answer any either common or uncommon denominator fractions when I'm trying to compare them together. Let's take a look at 1/2 and 5/7. If I have 1/2 and 5/7, I need to compare by cross multiplying. I'm taking the denominator, or the number down below, and multiplying it with the opposite numerator. So in this case, I would do this denominator 2 times this numerator 5, and I would get 10. I write that number big above 5/7. Then I do 7 times 1, which is 7, and I write that number big on top of 1/2, which means the 10 is larger than the 7, so my mouth opens up to the 5/7. In other words, 1/2 is less than 5/7. That's why my mouth opens up towards the 5/7, because this is the largest number, and the one that is largest is the one that gets eaten by the alligator mouth. Let's take a look at one more example on this page. Let me just clear this off, get rid of 1/2 and 5/7, and pull down 8/10 and 5/6. Again, following these steps, I'm able to use cross multiplication as a strategy to solve this problem. I take the number down below the denominator and cross multiply it with the opposite numerator. 10 times 5 is 50. I place my answer above that fraction. You know exactly where to place it based on where your arrows are going. I then multiply again, 8 times 6. You can either use a calculator or use your skip counting songs. 6, 12, 18, 24, 30, 36, 42, 48, and I place 48 on top of 8/10 because wherever you cross multiplied by, that's where you place the big number that you're writing. And in this case, because 50 is greater than 48, that tells me that 5/6 is greater than 8/10. Now you're going to take this knowledge and practice it on your own. So I want you to use this video to help. That's why in the worksheets that follow, you can see all of the steps right here on the right-hand side of your screen. I'm underlining it in black right now. So when you are completing this worksheet and the next worksheet, please use these steps to help guide you to get all of the answers as accurate as possible. In order to help you a little bit more, let's do a few together. Let's start at this one, 1/3 and 1/4. Which is greater? Well, let's start by using the cross multiplication product. I'm going to multiply the number down below with the opposite numerator and write those numbers large on top of that fraction where the arrow is pointing. 3 times 1 is 3, and 4 times 1 is 4. And because the 4 is larger than the 3, that tells me that 1/3 is larger than 1/4. So my alligator mouth will open up towards the 1/3. I can do the same exact strategy for letter B. 5/6 or 3/4, which is larger? Sure, I could fill in these fraction circles above, or I could quickly cross multiply 6 times 3 and get 18, write it nice and large on top, then 5 times 4 and get my answer of 20. Which tells me because 20 is larger than 18, when I draw my alligator mouth, it's going to open up towards the 5/6 because 5/6 is greater than 3/4. You can do the same thing with letters C and D. 2 times 2 would be 4. Now notice, because I'm getting the hang of it, I stopped drawing my arrows. This is the type of work that I should see on your sheet. 3 times 1 is 3. And because 4 is larger than 3, my alligator mouth wants to eat 2/3 because the 4, which is larger than 3, is over on this side of the paper. 5/8 or 5/6, which is larger? Cross multiply 8 times 5, write that number big over here. Cross multiply 6 times 5, write that number large over here, and whichever has the largest number, that's which fraction is the larger of the two fractions. Let's take a look at the other worksheet that you will also be working on, and you can use these as examples. Once again, regardless of if it has a circle, you're still directed to do greater than, less than, or equal to signs. And yes, you can have a fraction that gives you equivalent numbers. Let's take a look at the first three together. 4 multiplied by 1 gets me 4. Write it big on top of the 1/8 fraction because that's where the arrow is pointing. 8 multiplied by 1 is 8. Write it on top of the 1/4 because that is where the arrow is pointing. And because 8 is larger than 4, that tells me that 1/4 is larger than 1/8. Do the same thing here. Now I'm going to stop drawing the arrows, which this is exactly how your work should look. Plug 4 times 1 into a calculator if you need to. Write that number large over here. 2 times 1 is 2. Write that number large over here, which tells you 4 is greater than 2, which means 1/2 is greater than 1/4. Let's do one more together. And let's take this one. 6 times 4. 6, 12, 18, 24. Now, where did I get that 6 from again? It was the denominator down below with a 3/6 multiplied by the opposite numerator of 4/8. Same exact process. 8 times 3. 8, 16, 24. Ooh, here's one that's actually equal. So 3/6 is an equivalent fraction of 4/8. It equals the same exact fraction, which means these two numbers, 3/6 and 4/8, are actually equivalent fractions. So you see, you can use these steps over here on the side. You can use those steps that we talked about right here, which are the same exact steps that I showed you right here, and cross multiply to answer this question every single time. How do we compare fractions? Just cross multiply and have the alligator open its mouth towards the larger number. Thanks. I hope this video helps.